here are my responses to the question. So, question number one: when you think of a term phrase of dual language learners, what images come to mind? Age, gender, language, geographical location, etc. So, when I think of dual language learners, I think of a child that does not know the language of a predominantly spoken language, in this case, which would be English. In the United States, the main language is English. Also, when I think of dual language learners, because of the demographic that we live in, I think of Spanish speakers and coming into the United States due to various reasons, and not speaking Spanish as their main language instead of English. So when I think of dual language learners, that's what I think of. What challenges do you think dual language learners experience in early childhood education? One of the challenges I feel for me would be that children do not know what is happening. They are new to an environment, routines. They're pretty much just observing what is happening without feeling comfortable to participate. So I think that language barrier, if someone doesn't know how to speak it, it really it makes the language learner a little bit shyer than normal and not feel comfortable to be themselves. What challenges do you think ECE settings face in supporting dual language learners? One of the big things I feel sometimes, at least in other languages, would be having someone who also speaks the language. I know with Spanish, it's very easy to find someone who speaks Spanish. However, I make the case in point, like say for someone would speak in Farsi, or if they spoke Portuguese, there's not such a huge demographic area in all across the United States of people who speak that language, so finding someone who is able to speak it and be able to translate might be difficult, especially for a child who is beginning school for the first time and not having someone to be able to communicate with. That could seem a barrier between this early child center and the child themselves or the family themselves. So what assets do you think dual language learners bring to the early childhood setting? One of the things, this is a two-part. One, for the teacher, is a new perspective to, especially if it's the first time working with a child who is a English learner, is how to adapt. A new perspective into teaching. What can they do different to be more inclusive with the child? For students, their peers of the English learner, it would be just getting them to understand that everyone's different, not everyone speaks the same language, and that is okay. It's just an opportunity to talk about diversity in the classroom and in the world itself, and how we must be accepting of everyone, no matter of our differences. All right, should dual language learners be taught in their first language, in English, or both? Me personally, I think it should depend where they're at. Um, I feel both languages should be taught at, or at least spoken with the child. In English for sure, since going on into further their education, English is a language that they will need to know. Second, encourage them to speak their language when possible, because the last thing we need is for them to lose their ability to speak their first language, because I've seen that happen a lot with children of friends of mine who, because they speak only English at school, they tend to lose their ability to speak in Spanish fluently. If you were a parent of a dual language learner in early childhood setting, what types of support resources would you want for your child and or your family? For me personally, I would want them the school to support my child not just in English but in their home language, as I would want them to be able to be fluent in both languages. If I were a parent who did not speak English, I would ask how I, as a parent, would be able to help my child at home to further develop their learning. Many times, parents don't, due to the language barrier, don't know how to help their child, which can hinder their ability to help their child further on in their education. So that's something, if I were a parent, I would want that, just how I can help my child at home. What are some strategies and resources you think should be present in early childhood settings instructions to help develop early literacy skills? One thing I would do is definitely read with a child, or with a student. Uh, to promote literacy doesn't necessarily mean that we have to uh, promote reading itself. Just getting them introduced to the language, reading to them constantly, visual cues, picture books. That's a great way to develop their literacy skills. And second, on top of just books itself, I would promote doing art activities, something that'll help them promote their writing skills more than anything, just to get in practice with their fine motor skills with writing, holding a pencil, as that is one of the stepping stones to write, which will be needed and further as they progress in their educational careers. In early childhood settings, should the dual language learner be assessed, screened using the same assessment and screeners used with non dual language learners? Why or why not? I feel that even though there might be a language barrier, there should not be much of a difference. The developmental stages are overall the same for each child. If a child isn't developing at the rate that is normally guided in the assessments, then we can adapt our teachings to help facilitate the learning of the and developing of those skills. I feel language should not be a barrier or a reason for the assessment to be changed. Whereas we're not necessarily assessing language, it's more of their cognitive, gross fine motor skills,